Hey friends, tonight we're not stepping into the past of parlours or powdered wigs, but into the backyards where the city's filth came to be cleaned. Not the kind of history carved into marble plaques, this is the other side. The side with steam starch and scalded wrists. Behind a grand house in 1874 London sits a clattering coal-smoked laundry yard. A place where linen was worshipped and the women who scrubbed it were not. So if you're listening in the quiet, go ahead and dim things down a little further. Wrap yourself in something soft, let the noise of the day fade. And if this kind of slow, gritty history helps you relax or unwind, feel free to subscribe or leave a comment with where and when you're listening. I always love seeing the names and times that gather here. Because tonight, you're not watching, you're working, you're the new girl in the yard, you boil the master's shirts, you scrub the stains you're not allowed to ask about, you lift cloth heavier than your arms can carry, and when it slips, you just lift again. This isn't the story of a heroine, it's a day you likely wouldn't survive. So let's begin, not with a bang, but with a bucket. Cold water, raw soap, grey light, and the quiet discipline of a life no one remembers. Except us. Welcome to the yard. You wake before the sky even hints at light. There's no sunrise to greet you, just the thin grey dark that leaks through the crack in the attic window. The mattress is nothing but a lumpy sack stuffed with straw that pricks through the ticking, and it groans as you move. Not that it matters. You're already sore before you sit up. Your knees are stiff, your shoulders ache, and your fingers feel swollen from yesterday's lie. Beside you, another girl mutters in her sleep and turns over, pulling the ragged blanket tight. The air is cold enough that you see your breath. You move quietly, tugging on your work dress, a rough faded thing that still smells faintly of soap and coal, and lace up your hand-me-down boots. One has a loose heel. You'll just have to walk carefully and hope it doesn't catch in the yard grate again. Your knuckles are cracked and dry as you tie your apron, and there's a small split on your thumb from the soap soda yesterday that keeps catching on the fabric. You flex your hands to loosen them up and rub a dab of lard into your meaner palms, not because it helps much, but because it's better than nothing. Breakfast is half a heel of bread, still hard from yesterday, and a gulp of water from a shared jug that tastes faintly of tin. You skip the tea, there isn't any. You tuck the last bite in your cheek and grab your shawl, pushing the attic door open with your shoulder. It's still dark in the stairwell, and the wood creaks under your feet as you head down, past other rooms full of bundled bodies and faint snores. The hallway smells of chamber pot and damp plaster. A cat scurries past you on the landing. Outside, the street is damp with leftover drizzle. The cobbles slick and uneven. A thin mist crawls along the gutters, and the gas lamps flicker with a yellow glow that's more mood than light. You walk with your head down, shoulders hunched against the chill, your boots striking softly against the stones. The bakery on the corner is already stoking its oven. You catch the warm scent of yeast and ash, and somewhere behind you a newspaper boy coughs into the dark. The city hasn't quite woken, but it's breathing. You pass crates stacked with fish heads, the butcher's stall already open and dripping with yesterday's scraps, and two boys pulling a handcart full of coal that squeals against the curb as they turn. No one nods, no one speaks, it's too early for that. You reach the house through the back alley, a grand townhouse, all polished windows and whitewashed walls from the front. But back here it's different. Stone walls streaked with soot, a sagging fence and an iron gate that groans when you push it open. The laundry yard stretches out behind the house, hemmed in by high walls and a tangle of lines strung overhead. The paving stones are uneven and always wet, no matter the weather. You step around a puddle that smells strongly of starch and something sour, possibly milk. The air is already thick with smoke. The boiler woman has started the fire, and the smoke mixes with the sharp tang of soap powder and the low, constant hiss of steam. Somewhere to your left, a line of stained chemises is already sagging under its own damp weight. The laundry yard is louder than you'd expect for so early in the day. The great copper boiler is groaning, lid rattling as it builds pressure. A pump nearby wheezes like an asthmatic churning cold water from a rain barrel into a trough. You hear the rhythmic creak of the mangle being turned, slow and deliberate, and the occasional splash of water hitting stone. A woman coughs deeply in the corner and spits into the ash pile. This is your workplace, not a shop, not a home. A battlefield made of linens and lye. You hang your shawl on a hook that's already damp and take your place near the corner basin where yesterday's linens have been soaking overnight. The water is cold and slimy. You don't ask questions. A basket waits for you. The contents are as expected: shirts, collars, stockings, a few ladies' underthings that must be treated delicately but not too delicately, or the stains won't come out. You begin by hauling the first shirt out, wringing it gently over the side and plunging it back into the fresh basin you've just filled. Your hands go numb almost immediately. You scrub by habit, not by thought. Across the yard, the starcher gives you a brief glance but says nothing. She's already up to her elbows in boiled linen and looks like she hasn't blinked since Tuesday. You don't take it personally. No one says good morning here. There's no bell that starts the shift. Just the steady awareness that you're falling behind if your fingers aren't moving. You learn quickly that the worst thing you can be in a laundry yard is slow. Not rude. Not careless. Slow. Slowness is punished in a dozen quiet ways. Your basket gets the worst loads. You're told to redo work that wasn't wrong. You're left to boil the blooded things no one else wants. You glance up at the house above you. Somewhere in that grand white townhouse a breakfast tray is being prepared. Silverware laid out, butter curled into elegant shapes, and someone's nightgown, which you'll be scrubbing this morning, is still crumpled in a heap 2 feet from you. The work begins in silence, not because it's peaceful, but because it takes too much breath to complain. You lean into the basin, scrub collar after collar, the bristles of your brush wearing down in small clumps. Every now and then you glance down at your hands and wonder if they're still yours. The knuckles are pink and swollen. The skin on your fingertips has turned white from soaking. And still, it's not enough. A good laundress gets the shirt clean without fraying the fabric. She knows how long to soak and when to scrub and when to just hope the sun will bleach it enough. You're not there yet. You're just trying not to be noticed. Not being noticed is the safest you can be. The layout of the laundry yard is simple but unforgiving. The cobbled ground slopes slightly toward the drain in the centre, which never works properly, and there's always a shallow puddle around it that smells of old bleach and worse. To the right, under a sagging lean-to, is the mangle shed, a shaded area with 2 long-handled mangles mounted on thick wooden frames. Across from it is the iron station, half-walled and roofed with tin that bangs like a drum every time the wind stirs. The lines crisscross overhead like spiderwebs, heavy with stiffening sheets and pale shifts caught mid-flutter. Buckets line the edges of the yard, some filled with soaking linen, others with mystery liquids best not questioned. You learn early not to trip, not to ask, and never to complain about the smell. It never helps. The smell wins. At the centre of it all is the copper boiler. Half the height of a man and twice as loud, its belly always rumbling with the weight of water and fire. Iron tongs hang beside it, meant for pulling garments from the scalding froth. Most of the girls have at least one burn scar from those tongs. The boiler woman, called Cook, though it's likely not her real name, guards it like a dragon. She's broad in the shoulder, with rolled sleeves and soot always smudged on her temple. Her voice is like gravel in a coal chute, and she's been here longer than anyone can remember. It's said she once boiled an entire set of lace curtains into sludge and still got paid. Whether that's true doesn't matter. She's untouchable. If you step too close to the boiler without her nod, she'll box your ears with the same hand she stirs the lye with. Then there's Nora the starcher. Pale eyes, pale lashes, pale hair tied back in a bun so tight it looks painful. She always smells of sour starch and turpentine, and her hands are permanently grey. She doesn't speak much unless it's to mutter about ratios and ruin, but her work is impeccable. Shirts come out so crisp they could stand on their own. It's said she once got an extra halfpenny tip from the master of the house for a collar that didn't collapse at dinner. She keeps a tally chalked on the wall of the start shed. Not of loads done, but of times her work got returned. It's a short list, and God help you if you set anything on a clean bench, even by accident. One girl did last month. They haven't spoken since. Across the yard, in the ringer corner, you'll find Bess. Older than the rest and mostly deaf in one ear, she hums constantly as she works the big wooden rollers. Humming is allowed, singing is not. Singing's considered cheeky. Bess knows the difference. She wears her skirts tucked up over her knees and has a way of turning her whole body to crank the ringer handle, shifting her weight from one foot to the other like she's dancing with it. Her arms are solid as fence posts. You don't want to get on her bad side, but she's the one most likely to slip you a bit of her bread if you missed breakfast. She's also the one who taught you to lift the rollers before turning them or risk catching your knuckles. The girl who didn't listen still has a crooked finger. And then there's Clara, who irons. No one knows her full name. No one asks. She's thin and quiet and wears gloves even when it's warm. Thin cotton things that do little to stop the heat but give her hands a kind of grace the rest of us lack. She works with the sad irons, flat and heavy, heated on the stove and rotated through in pairs. One in use, one on the flame. Her face is usually damp from the heat, and a strand of hair always slips from her bun and sticks to her cheek. But her movements are clean, precise. Watching her press a dress bodice is like watching someone paint with stone. She never burns the cloth, never scorches the lace. There's something almost reverent in the way she lays a garment flat, smooths it, and presses down with the iron like sealing a secret into the fabric. Over it all looms the head laundress, Miss Lark. No one calls her anything else. She's not cruel, but she is something worse. Unflinching. She's always in motion, always watching. Her hair is pinned up in tight coils, her apron spotless despite the chaos around her. She carries a leather-bound tally book under one arm, and her pencil is never far from her fingers. The pencil is what you watch for. When it moves, someone's made a mistake. If it stops, she's thinking of one you haven't made yet. She speaks quietly, but somehow you hear her even over the boiler's roar. She's the reason no one dares cut corners. She's also the reason this place runs smoother than it has any right to. You both fear and respect her, which is exactly what she intends. There's no formal introductions here, no welcome speech. You just show up and start. If you last a week, someone might remember your name. If you last a month, they might say good morning. Until then, you're girl. Or worse, nothing. Tasks are handed out with nods or pointed fingers. If you hesitate, someone else takes your place. There's no kindness in the yard, but there's fairness of a certain sort. Everyone does their share. Everyone suffers. And if someone's work is bad, the rest feel it. You learn fast, or you don't come back. And no one comes looking for you if you don't. The rhythm of the yard is a living thing. Buckets slosh, mangles turn, the copper hisses. A boot scuffs the stone. Someone swears as a petticoat tears. The ringer squeaks. A starch paddle clinks against the side of a basin. These sounds aren't random, they're a language. After a few days, you can also tell by the sound of a shirt hitting the mangle if it's too wet. You know by the way the boiler lid clangs whether the fire's too hot. You can hear a collar start to scorch under the iron before you see the smoke. It's not just a noise, it's the pulse of the place, and you better learn the beat or get stepped on. The only warmth here is the kind that scalds. The boiler's heat makes the air shimmer. The irons radiate through your apron. The soap stings your wrists. Even the gossip burns when it finally lands. No one's here to soothe you, but there's a kind of comfort in the constancy of it. The work is always there, always the same, always waiting, and there's something quietly brutal about how dependable that is. You can count on it. The linen will always be dirty, the fire will always need feeding, and you will always go home sore. Some girls dream of leaving, of finding a place in a dress shop or maybe a kitchen with less smoke, but most don't get far. The work takes something from you, not just your skin or your posture, something deeper. A kind of softness that never comes back once it's boiled away. You start to forget what it's like to wear clothes that don't itch. to eat without soap under your fingernails, to hear bullets without thinking something's gone wrong. And when someone new arrives, all raw hands and bright eyes, the older girls watch her. Not with envy, with pity. You're assigned to scrubbing today. Not the starch work or the tidy folding that some girls angle for, but down on your knees at the stone trough working collars and cuffs until your arms go numb. They give you the brush with the short handle. Short means more control, they say. But really it just means your fingers will ache sooner. The water's cold even after you break the top layer of stillness with your hand. It's always cold to start, then it burns later, when the lie has had its say. You dunk the first shirt, a man's linen one with blood and gravy on the cuff, and begin the slow, familiar rhythm. Soak, scrub, turn, scrub again. You don't think. You can't afford to. If you start thinking, you'll remember that it's not even your dirt you're washing away. Across the yard, the copper boiler is going full tilt. Steam rises like a ghost from the lid, and the metallic stink of wet iron lingers in the air. Cook stands beside it with a poker, stirring the load as though it were a cauldron of stew. She doesn't look up. You've learnt not to expect praise, and certainly not eye contact. She yells only when something's wrong, which is its own kind of mercy. One of the girls beside you, elbows deep in pillowcases, murmurs something about the master's son leaving boot prints across a silk underskirt. You both know what that means. Another hour of rinsing. You say nothing, just grit your teeth and scrub harder, pushing the soap into the fabric until your wrists feel like they're filled with gravel. The soap they use is a homemade slurry of soda crystals, ash, and shredded tallow soap scraped into a bucket and stirred into a thick paste. It smells faintly of old candles and strongly of punishment. You slather it onto the collar with your fingers, no gloves, those are for starching, and work it in with the stiff bristled brush until foam flecks the stone. The bristles catch on seams and buttons. You tear the thread once, swear softly under your breath, and keep going. There's no time to be careful. Careful is slow, and slow is noticed. After a while, your knuckles lose their feeling, and your back starts to throb in that dull, familiar way that says you'll be hunched by 40. Steam clings to your face mixing with sweat, and every few minutes you wipe your sleeve across your forehead, leaving a grey smear. The collars are the worst. Tight corners, stiff fabric, dirt that clings like it has a grudge. Men's collars, ladies' sleeves, nightshirts with mysterious yellowing, all scrubbed until the fabric blanches, or your fingers bleed, whichever comes first. The girl next to you stops to shake out her hand, flexing her fingers with a grimace. You don't stop. You're behind already. The shirts soak in baskets behind you, their damp weight looming. If you fall behind, someone else will have to take your load, and that someone will remember it. No one forgets who makes their day harder. The rhythm of it becomes hypnotic. Dip, scrub, wring, stack. You lose track of time, of the sky, of anything, except the way the brush scours the cotton, and the way your hands move on their own. Someone behind you drops a bucket. It clatters across the stones, spilling grey water everywhere. Cook yells. No one looks up. A piece of lace flutters down from a drying line above, catching on the corner of the mangle shed roof. One of the older girls throws a cloth over it to weigh it down. You keep scrubbing. Your brush squeaks against the stone. The shirt is clean enough, maybe. You rinse it, wring it, and toss it into the second basket. On to the next. Some of the older girls hum. Not real songs, just bits of tune to pass the time. It's discouraged, but not forbidden. One of them knows the hymn the mistress favours and hums it out of spite more than piety. A few others chuckle under their breath, then go quiet as Miss Lark passes by, her pencil already twitching. You duck your head further. The steam is everywhere now. It rises from the boiler, from the tubs, from the stone floor slick with the runoff. It gets into your clothes, your hair, your lungs. Breathing feels like drinking your own sweat. You've learned not to wipe your face too much. The soap on your sleeve stings the eyes. Lunch is a long way off, but your stomach is already reminding you what little you gave it this morning. Bread and water don't carry far in a place like this. Someone farther down the line pulls a face and flicks a bit of lye back into her basin with too much force. It splashes. A sharp cry follows. Red knuckles. Someone curses. A cloth is thrown. No one stops. Injuries are part of the rhythm too. You soak the hurt hand in a bucket, bind it and keep moving. That's the rule. There are more stains to chase. Always more stains. And by now, your nose is so used to the smell that you barely notice the burn of ammonia or the iron tang of something worse. When the baskets fill, they're hauled to the wringer by a pair of girls who've been doing this longer than you've been alive. They carry the wet linen like it's nothing, muscles built from months of soaked cotton and no rest. You envy them until you remember the price. Hands like bark, backs that never straighten. They dump the baskets beside the rollers and shout for the next round. You're still on shirt 3. Time has a cruel way of folding in on itself here. You think you've been working for hours, but the sun's barely climbed over the rooftop. It doesn't matter. There's no clock here, just the sound of scraping brushes and boiling water. A breeze cuts through the yard for a moment, lifting the steam, giving you a glimpse of the sky, pale grey, like washed-out slate. You blink into it and pretend it's blue. Someone behind you mutters that it might rain. You hope it won't. Rain means all the drying lines have to be pulled down and the laundry re-washed if it gets damp. Rain means chaos. Rain means longer hours. You dip your brush again and press it into the next sleeve with more force than needed. It slips. Your knuckles crack against the stone edge. You hiss, more in frustration than pain. There's no time for blood. You suck your fingers and keep scrubbing. The worst stains are always the ones you don't ask about. You learn to recognise them. Old blood, new blood, rust from a corset hook, grease from a carriage step, wine if you're lucky, something else if you're not. Some stains whisper stories if you let them, but you stop listening after a while. You start to care more about the cloth than the cause. A good piece of linen deserves to be clean, no matter what filth it's carried. That's how you think, now. That's what this place does. It teaches you not to flinch, not to wonder. Just scrub until it disappears, or until the fabric wears through. You're sent next to the wringer, a hulking wooden beast that stands chest high and looks like it belongs in a dungeon more than a yard. The rollers are thick and grooved, mounted on iron brackets that have rusted around the bolts. You're told not to trust the crank. It sticks, then spins all at once, and more than one girl's caught a finger trying to wrestle it into obedience. Bess gives you a glance as you step near, then nods toward the wet pile on the bench. You load, I crank, she mutters, voice flat from years of repetition. You don't argue. The rhythm here is older than either of you, and you're still learning the steps. You grab the first sodden shirt and feed it between the rollers, guiding the edge with both hands while Bess leans her weight into the crank. The wood groans and turns, squeezing the water out with a slow, tortured sound. A grey stream pours into the gutter below. You can feel the pressure even through the linen, the resistance of fabric stretched tight against wood. If your fingers were caught, they'd snap like twigs. You glance down at the scar across Bess's left hand and swallow hard. She sees you looking and snorts. It's not broken unless it draws blood, she says. Then she adds, try not to test it. Each piece takes time. You lay it flat, feed it in, catch the other end, and lay it aside in a folded pile that sags with steam. Some shirts come through twisted, and you have to re-roll them, which means more cranking, more soaked elbows, more barked knuckles. Your arms ache in new ways now, not from scrubbing, but from lifting heavy cloth made heavier by water. It's different work, but just as brutal. Your palms blister in spots the brush never touched. The smell here is different too. Less lye, more wet wool, old starch and iron. The copper tang clings to your throat like a swallowed coin. The mangle is worse. Where the wringer removes water, the mangle flattens. It's meant for sheets, tablecloths, long lengths of damask that need to look smooth enough to impress dinner guests who'll never know where the Polish came from. It's a two-person job, one to turn, one to feed, and the rollers are longer, heavier, and even less forgiving. Clara comes over to check your folding. If you mangle it wrong, it creases funny, she says, nudging the edge of your sheet into a straighter line. And if it creases funny, I can't iron it. And if I can't iron it, You're the one she'll yell at. She doesn't say who. She doesn't have to. You lift the damp sheet with both arms, the fabric clinging like seaweed, and feed it slowly onto the mangle board. It's hard to tell where to grab. Everything's wet and slippery and your grip is useless. Clara lines up the edge and gives a nod. You step back. She turns the great crank at the side. The rollers engage with a groan, pressing the sheet with steady force. It comes out the other side cool and flattened, like paper drawn through a press. The ridges are gone, replaced with smooth, silent obedience. You wish your body would respond the same way, but your shoulders are already trembling from the lift. Once you find the rhythm, you lose yourself in it again. Load, turn, catch, stack. There's a kind of numb peace in the repetition. No time for thoughts, no room for anything except the mechanics of the task. The pile shrinks slowly. You get faster, your fingers adjusting, your arms remembering what your brain can't hold on to. But each piece carries its own rebellion. A sleeve that twists, a seam that catches, a hem that refuses to lie flat. The cloth doesn't care how tired you are. It only obeys under pressure. Just like everything else in this place. Mist rises off the cloth as it comes through the rollers, warming your face before cooling fast in the damp air. The smell changes again. Less foul now, more like old rain on stone. You wonder what these sheets will smell like once they're laid out upstairs, draped across feather beds, surrounded by perfume and candles. You wonder if anyone will notice the faint memory of the yard clinging to the threads. Probably not. That's the point. If you do your job well, no one knows you touched it. That's the paradox of laundry. Perfection looks like you were never there. Your boots slip a little on the wet stone and you adjust your stance next to your back. Bess has gone quiet now, focused on a twisted underskirt that refuses to go through clean. Her mouth is tight. You catch the edge of a sigh and realise it's the first time you've heard her sound tired. Not angry, not loud, just tired. It feels strange, wrong almost, like a tree creaking in still weather. You don't speak. You just hand her another piece and keep turning. That's what this work demands. Not comfort, not sympathy, just motion. At one point, the crank catches. A button must have snagged in the rollers. The handle kicks back, slamming into your hip. You yelp before you can stop yourself. Bess looks over, gives a small grunt of acknowledgement, then checks the rollers. The button is crushed flat. A little piece of shell now embedded in the wood. She pries it loose with a forked tool and wipes her hands on her apron. Better that than a finger, she says without looking up. You nod, even though your leg is already throbbing. You move slower now. No one tells you not to. But you feel it anyway, the weight of falling behind. The mangle isn't just hard on the body, it's hard on the nerves. There's no forgiveness in it, no second tries. Once a piece goes through wrong, it's marked, sometimes ruined. And ruined linen is a bigger sin than a late arrival. A stain is dirt, but a bad crease? That's disrespect. You learn to fear the wrinkle more than the blood. You learn to guide the cloth with reverence, as if every thread might tattle on you upstairs. There's an intimacy in it, between you and the linen. You know its folds, its limits, its weaknesses. You feel them as clearly as your own. You're reassigned back to the soap bench, which is really just a cracked plank balanced across two overturned pails. They say you're quick with your hands, but what they mean is you don't complain yet. The soap buckets are still half full from the morning. Grey slush flecked with undissolved soda and bits of something hard to name. You stir it with your bare hand, feeling the grit gather beneath your fingernails. There's no precise recipe. Every girl mixes it a little different. Some go heavy on soda, others cut it with warm water if the batch stings too much. But if you soften it too much, it won't bite deep enough, and biting deep is the only thing that gets the stains out. Today you're tackling what's left of the master's linens. That means undershirts and collars, mostly, all yellowed with sweat and streaked with whatever cologne he wore too heavily last night. You also get one pair of trousers with the kind of stains no one talks about, just makes a face and passes down the line. You coat the worst spots with dry soda before scrubbing, rough as sand and twice as mean. It tears through cotton like a drunk through a market stall. But that's the balance. Press too lightly and the stain stays. Press too hard and the cloth gives way before the dirt does. You find the line through trial, mostly error. There's no glory in stain work, no elegance, just slow, painful attention to filth you didn't make. Each mark tells a story, but you don't want to know any of them. Some are food, some are wine, some are blood, and some are everything else. The trick is not to wonder. Don't ask what that smudge is, don't guess. Just work it out with your brush and your knuckles and your back teeth clenched. The soap burns, and your hands crack, and the cloth doesn't thank you for it. But if the stain disappears, you win. For now. Until the next one shows up with a new name and a deeper colour. Miss Lark comes by once to inspect your basket. She says nothing, just lifts one corner of the cloth, pinches it between two fingers, and nods once before moving on. You release a breath you didn't know you were holding. A nod means it's clean. A shake of the head would have meant rewash. A mark in her tally book. And a day of whispers behind your back. No one wants that. Clean laundry is supposed to be invisible. Perfect means unremarked. It's a strange sort of goal, working just hard enough to go unnoticed. But in this yard, that's the closest thing to peace you'll ever get. One of the girls near the boiler brings over a bundle she says needs special care. A lady's petticoat with lace trim and a faint red bloom near the hem. You take it without a word, though your stomach turns. You know what it is. Everyone knows. She says nothing more and leaves you to it. You soak the area in cold water first, dabbing gently with cloth, then baking soda, then lemon water, then soap. You dab and soak and rinse over and over, careful not to fray the lace. You can't save the girl who wore it, whoever she is. But you can make sure the stain disappears before anyone sees it. Some stains talk back. Ink that bleeds across a cuff, soaking into every thread like it's fleeing the scene. Grease that spreads when you try to blot it, smirking as it ruins the fabric. Soot that settles deep into folds like it was born there. And sometimes, no matter what you do, the stain stays. Faint, but stubborn. And if it stays, you have a choice. Lie, and risk it being caught later, or start again from the beginning, knowing you'll fall behind. You always start again, because Miss Lark won't forget, and Clara won't iron it, and Bess won't wring it, and the whole line will know you tried to cheat the cloth. That's worse than failing. You watch the older girls as they work. Their movements are efficient, brutal, precise. No wasted scrubbing, no extra soaking. They seem to know what each stain needs before they touch it. One glance and they choose soda or vinegar or salt. They never hesitate. You want that. That confidence, that grim serenity. But for now, you still doubt, still second guess. And every time you reach for the soap, you hope it's the right call. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And every mistake teaches you one more rule. One more secret of the trade that no one says out loud, because the cloth won't care what you've been told. It only responds to hands. The soap eats your skin faster than it eats the stains. By midday, the backs of your hands sting constantly, and your wrists are red as boiled beets. You try to rub a little oil into the worst cracks during break, but it doesn't help. You've heard stories of girls who wore gloves at night stuffed with lard and paper, trying to keep their skin from splitting. You've also heard those girls didn't last long. If you need comfort that badly, this place chews you up faster. The yard doesn't forgive soft hands. It feeds on them. One collar takes you nearly 20 minutes. It's not even particularly dirty, just worn in a way that makes the dirt hide. You scrub until your elbows scream and finally you lift it to the light. Clean. You think. You hope. You toss it into the done pile and reach for the next. A lady's shift, pale blue with lace along the bodice. The stain is perfume, faint but oily. You'll need spirits for that. You glance toward the starch shed. Nora's got a bottle of turpentine she guards like treasure. You make a note to ask, politely, carefully, if you can borrow a thimble's worth. Maybe she'll say yes. Maybe she'll glare and tell you to use spit like she did. You press on. The pile never shrinks, not really. It just shifts, changes shape, trades one kind of filth for another. You work the soap until it runs clear, until the cloth stops resisting, until the stain forgets it was ever there. And when that happens, you smile a little, even if no one sees, because for a brief second you've beaten something. Not the stain, not the work, but the silence around it. You've made something clean, and in this place that feels like a kind of mercy. When the break finally comes, it isn't announced. There's no bell or horn or kind voice telling you to stop, it just happens. Slowly the scrubbing quiets. The mangles groan to a halt. Irons are pulled from heat and wrapped in cloth. Bess straightens her back with a crack that echoes across the stones and mutters something about her spine filing a complaint. The girls drift toward the side alley, where a half-barrel serves as a table. Someone spreads out a bit of rag to sit on. Someone else brings a crust of bread wrapped in yesterday's newsprint. No one smiles, but for a moment, they breathe easier. You sit on a crate that smells like pickled herring and unwrap the lump of bread you stashed in your pocket this morning. It's mostly dry, slightly linty, but it's food, and you're too hungry to care. The tea is tepid, passed from hand to hand in a tin pail that's been around longer than any of you. It tastes faintly of soap and old tin, but it's hot, and it cuts the sour in your throat. Someone passes around a single spotted dick pudding still wrapped in a bit of wax cloth. It's small, just enough for a spoonful each. Nora takes hers without comment. Clara declines, too hot and tired to care. You eat your bite slowly, savouring the raisins like they're gold. No one talks at first, just chewing, sipping, wiping sweat from brows with the cleaner side of an apron. The steam still hangs heavy, but for a few stolen minutes the work recedes. Then come the whispers. They always start slow. Today it's the tall girl, May, whose cousin works as a scullery maid in the master's house. She says the lady is expecting again, though it's not clear whose child it is. That gets a few snorts and glances. Someone else chimes in that the master's been drinking more, that he broke a decanter last week in front of the footman. Bess adds, "Wouldn't be the first thing he's broken." That brings out the chuckles. Not real laughter. No one here has the energy for that, but the kind that comes from exhaustion and shared contempt. Gossip is a kind of currency in the laundry yard. Everyone trades it and no one trusts it, but it's all you have to pass the time when your hands are too raw to work and your body's too tired to sleep. One of the younger girls claims she heard the mistress shout at the cook last night. Said something about the smell in the drawing room. Probably one of the carpets they tried to clean last week. You know the one. Red velvet reeking of tobacco and wet dog. They should have tossed it. Instead, you spent hours dabbing and cursing and hoping no one noticed the watermark that wouldn't come out. Eventually someone brings up Ellen, the girl who left 2 weeks ago. Vanished after a lunch break just like this one. Didn't say goodbye. Just stopped showing up. The guesses fly. Married off, ran off, got work in a better house, maybe fell in the river. Someone says she saw Ellen at the fish market, buying eels with a man who looked like a coachman. Another swears she heard the mistress mention her name in a bad tone. You say nothing. You liked Ellen. She once shared her plum jam with you, and when your fingers bled last week, she slipped you her kerchief when no one was looking. Bess shifts her weight and says, "Doesn't matter where she went. If she didn't send for her pay, she won't get it." There's a murmur of agreement. That's the real truth. You can leave whenever you want, but if you do, you leave empty-handed. No one chases you, no one asks why, and if your last week's wages go unclaimed, they vanish like steam off a basin. That's how it's always been. That's how it'll stay. You look down at your bread, now gone, and wipe your fingers on your skirt. Around you the others start moving again. Nora picks at a splinter in the barrel. Clara starts wrapping her hair tighter. Miss Lark hasn't been seen since before the break, which means she's watching from somewhere. You always feel her presence before you see her, like thunder just out of earshot. The gossip fades, replaced by the rustling of cloth and the scuffle of sore feet. Break's over. Not officially, just over. The work calls and no one argues with that. You rise slowly, feeling every joint complain. Your back feels like a board left too long in the rain. Your wrists ache in pulses. Your thighs protest the simple act of standing. But you stand because you must. That's the rhythm here. Brief silence, then more noise. Brief rest, then the long haul. The alley empties one girl at a time, each returning to their post like soldiers marching back to the front. No one says goodbye. There's no need. You'll see each other again in a few hours, just as wrung out, just as sore. You're sent to the ironing shed next, which is less a shed and more a scorched rectangle of wall and roof that traps heat like a coffin left out in the sun. The air is thick with coal smoke and hot metal, and even the stones underfoot feel warm. You can already feel your clothes sticking to your back by the time you cross the threshold. The irons, called sad irons, not for their mood but for their weight, sit on a row of cast iron plates, each heated from beneath by a coal stove that hasn't gone cold in 3 years. You can't touch them directly, not unless you want blisters across your palms. Instead, you test them with scraps of muslin or spit if you're desperate. The spit hisses when it lands. That's how you know it's ready. Clara is already there, sleeves rolled and hair pinned back tight. Her gloves are off and her fingers move with quiet purpose. She doesn't look up when you arrive. She doesn't need to. She knows what to do, and so do you. You take the stack of half-dried linens, warm from the mangle, and begin laying them on the ironing board one by one. It's a delicate process, made worse by the fact that any mistake means starting over. Creases are deadly. Folds are crimes. And scorch marks? Scorch marks are cause for dismissal. You've seen it happen. One girl scorched a lace hem last spring and was gone before she could beg for another chance. The cloth never forgives. The first shirt is stiff from starch. Nora did it well, as always. You unfold it carefully, smoothing the arms, lining the buttons, making sure the collar lies flat. Then you take the handle of the sad iron, wrap it in cloth, and lift. The weight is shocking every time, solid, unforgiving, and hot enough to brand a cow. You lay it down on the shirt with care, pressing in slow, deliberate movements. You don't slide it. Sliding is for amateurs. You lift and press, lift and press. The cloth beneath hisses and sighs as the heat seeps into it, erasing wrinkles and setting the shape like a mould. The silence in the ironing shed is thick. No one speaks unless they must. Even Bess, when she comes in to deliver another load, doesn't say a word. She just nods and leaves. The only sounds are the hiss of cloth, the occasional groan of the stove, and the soft grunt of someone lifting a new iron into place. Your face drips with sweat. Your neck itches from the heat. Your fingers, wrapped in the edge of your apron, ache from holding the iron steady. But you don't stop. This part of the day is about precision. Scrubbing is strength, mangle is rhythm, but ironing is grace, and failure here is visible to everyone. You start to lose yourself in it again. Shirt, shift, apron, tablecloth. Each piece a new challenge. Some come in easy, flat cotton, no frills, no tricks. Others fight you, pleats that won't hold, lace that sticks, seams that wrinkle no matter how many times you go over them. One shift has embroidery along the hem. Tiny rosebuds in pale thread. You work around them carefully, pressing between the stitches, hoping the iron doesn't catch. Clara glances over once, sees your caution, and gives a rare nod of approval. It feels like sunlight through cloud. You almost smile. But then comes the hard part. Ironing sleeves. Not the flat outer part, but the rounded bit under the arm. The part that folds in 2 places at once. You've ruined more sleeves here than you care to count. The trick is to slide a narrow roll of cloth inside and iron around it. But even that has risks. One wrong move and the iron catches, folds over itself and leaves a mark you can't hide. You try anyway, gently, slowly. Your hands tremble, the iron is heavy, your arm slips, and just as you think you've made it, the cloth creases under the weight. Not badly, but enough. You stare at it, willing it to vanish. It doesn't. You set the iron down, take a breath, pick up the spray bottle, just water and vinegar, and mist the crease. You smooth the fabric, fold it, reset the sleeve. The iron goes back on. You press again, this time with Maud's care. It's not perfect, but it's close. Good enough. Maybe. You fold it into the finished pile and move on, heart still pounding. Clara says nothing, but she saw. You know she did. She'll remember. You just hope she doesn't tell Miss Lark. Your shoulders are screaming now. The weight of the iron over and over has ground your joints into grit. Your elbows throb, your wrists burn, your lower back is a knot of tension. But you keep going, because this is the part of the day where mistakes are most visible. You could hide a bad scrub job beneath extra starch. You could bury a bad ring under a drying cloth. But a poor press shows itself instantly, and those are the ones Miss Lark checks first. You've seen her run a single finger along a folded collar and shake her head in sound. That's all it takes. One finger. One look. The room feels smaller the longer you stay in it. The heat presses in from all sides. The roof traps it. The walls reflect it. The stove spits more of it. You start to feel dizzy. You blink and see spots. You pause just for a moment and lean back against the wall. The stone is warm, not cool like you hoped. Clara notices. She sets her iron down and slides a tin cup your way. You take it without a word. Lukewarm water, metallic. It's the best thing you've tasted all day. You nod in thanks. She doesn't reply. She's already turned back to her stack. The clouds roll in without warning. 1 minute you're folding pressed linens with sweat on your back. The next there's a hush across the yard. A silence you learn to recognise as weather. You look up. The sky has turned that dull pewter grey. The kind that presses low and promises trouble. A drop lands on your wrist. Then another. Then the first heavy splash on a freshly ironed apron hanging on the line. "Rain!" someone shouts. And just like that, the yard erupts. The workday doesn't pause for weather. It panics. Everyone grabs for the lines at once, tugging pins free, yanking down sheets, folding what they can, bundling the rest. You drop your pile and run to the far line where a set of tablecloths is already drooping. The fabric is slick, made worse by the wind that picks up just as you reach it. You gather 2 corners, pull too fast, and the whole cloth whips upward, catching you in the face before landing in the mud. You curse under your breath, ball it up, and move to the next. Across the yard, Clara's arms are full of petticoats. Bess is shouting at one of the younger girls to stop dragging hems across the stones. Miss Lark appears at the edge of the shed, all hard eyes and ticking pencil. She doesn't shout. She doesn't need to. The rain comes harder. Not a drizzle now, but a soaking sheet. The stones darken, the air fills with the sound of drops hitting cloth, hitting buckets, hitting your skin. You're soaked through in minutes. Hair plastered to your face, boots squelching as you move. You slip once, catch yourself on a line post and keep going. Every second matters. Every second a pressed shirt is out in this downpour is a second closer to ruin. And ruin means re-wash. And re-wash means overtime, unpaid. You grab the last shift, wring it out loosely, and dash back under the cover of the mangling shed. Once the chaos settles, the damage is counted. 2 tablecloths are lost to mud. A pair of stockings left on the fence rail, soaked beyond saving. One of the starch bundles collapsed, and the starch has gone gummy. The smell is sour, gluey. Nora mutters curses in a voice low and venomous. Bess drops onto a bench and kicks her boots off to empty the water. "If it's not mildew, it's a miracle," she says. No one laughs. Everyone just breathes heavy and drips quietly. Your arms feel like they've been unspooled. Your back is cramping, but it's not over yet. Rain doesn't stop the drying, it just moves it. Indoors into the attic, up narrow stairs where the ceiling slopes and the air is stale. You carry your bundle up behind Clara, the linen growing heavier with each step. At the top, the space is lined with ropes from rafter to rafter, strung low so even short girls have to duck. You hang the damp cloths one by one, pinching them to the line with wooden pegs. The attic smells of damp cotton and old wood. A broken window in the corner lets in a thin draught that carries the scent of soot and far-off chimney smoke. The light is dim, but your eyes adjust. You can see old splatters on the ceiling from rainstorms past. In the corner, someone's carved a name into the beam. May, 1870, HL. You wonder who she was, whether she made it out, whether she still carries the smell of wet linen on her hands. You hang the last of your bundle and step back to check for sagging. There's one twist in the hem, but you smooth it gently and move on. Clara adjusts her own line, then nods toward the stairs. "You'd best get another load," she says, and disappears below. Back down in the yard, the rain is still coming, though slower now. The sky is lighter. The worst has passed, but everything is slick. The stones shine like oil. You pick your way across carefully, avoiding puddles and buckets left where they fell. The laundry baskets are covered with cloths now, makeshift tents to keep the last of the rain off. Someone stokes the boiler fire higher to make up for the chill. The steam rises thicker, billowing into the yard like breath from a dragon's mouth. You roll your sleeves back up and get back to work. There's talk of using the drying room in the cellar, but everyone hates it. It's dark, narrow, damp in a way that clings to the lungs. The ropes hang lower. The cloth dries slower. And sometimes it doesn't dry at all, just sits in the shadows and sours. Miss Lark makes the call to hold off for now. If the wind shifts and the sky clears, you'll get the lines back up by late afternoon. Otherwise, it's the cellar. And no one wants the cellar. You keep ironing, keep folding, keep praying to no god in particular that the sun finds a way through. Evening light, when it finally comes, is pale and weak, but it's enough. The clouds drift apart like someone pulled a curtain, and the last hour is a flurry of re-washing, re-drying, re-hanging. No one speaks. There's nothing left to say. The work speaks for itself. And today, it said a mouthful. You lift a half-dried apron from the attic and shake it out gently. It flutters. Lighter now, clean again. You peg it to the line outside and watch as the wind takes it. Not enough to dry it completely, but enough to make it dance. You don't smile, but your shoulders loosen just a little. The worst part of the day isn't the boiling, or the scrubbing, or even the ironing. It's the tally. When the sun drops low enough to throw long shadows across the yard, Miss Lark re-emerges with her pencil poised and that little book that decides everything. You know the routine by now. Every finished item is counted, checked and approved. Every mistake is noted, and any item unaccounted for, no matter how clean, how perfect, becomes a question. And in this place, questions are dangerous. You stand by your pile, hands still red and slick, watching her as she begins the count. She moves with precision, not sped. A gloved hand lifts each piece by the edge, as if the oils from her fingers might soil it. A shirt, a shift, a tablecloth. She flips corners, pinches seams, checks the pleats. You see her pencil twitch now and then. Tick, tick, pause, your chest tightens. She reaches your stack and your heart climbs into your throat. The shirt with the collar you repressed earlier, was it good enough? The lady's shift with the perfume stain, did it hold? You can't read her face, she's all cheekbones and scrutiny, a human ledger in a crisp apron. Then she stops. Not at your pile, at Bess's. A frown creases her brow. She flips through a small basket, count growing sharper. "We're missing a handkerchief," she says, voice low but firm. Everything stops. The irons are pulled from the fire. The brushes go still. All heads turn. No one says a word. The handkerchief is monogrammed. Probably the master's, or worse, the mistress's. One piece in a mountain of linen, but its absence rings like a bell through the yard. "Check your piles," Miss Lark says. It's not a request. You bend instantly, fingers going numb again as you thumb through each carefully folded layer. Panic rises fast. Not loud, not shrieking, but deep and cold, the kind that creeps into your gut. A handkerchief can't just vanish, not unless someone took it, or burned it, or it slipped into the rinse basin and floated off into the drain, which has eaten stranger things. You rifle through your basket again. Twice. Bess swears under her breath. Clara checks the ironing bench, running her hand under the slats. Nora opens the starch bin and stares inside like the linen might have climbed in by itself. Nothing. The handkerchief is gone. Miss Lark doesn't raise her voice. She just waits. The stillness is worse than yelling. Then slowly, with a calmness that feels staged, she reaches into her apron pocket and pulls something out. A crumpled white square, slightly damp, pressed but not folded. She holds it up. There's the monogram, clear as the ink on paper. She says, "Found it in the waste pile." She says it flatly. No accusation, just fact. But the room exhales all at once and the shame falls heavy. No one meets her eyes, no one dares. She tucks it into the tally book and turns to go. Then, with a pause at the threshold, she says without looking back, "Don't be careless next time." It lands like a stone in water. After she's gone, no one speaks for a while. You return to your spot and begin folding again, hands moving slower now. Everyone feels it. Not just the fear, the humiliation, the knowledge that even when it's not your fault, it could have been. That's the weight of this place. You never feel entirely safe. You're only ever one mistake away from being named. And names don't wash out like stains, they stick. Long after the cloth is clean, the sun slips lower, the air cools, the boiler hisses softer. You finish your last piece, check it twice, and place it in the final stack. The pile isn't tall, but it's honest. Every shirt scrubbed, every hem ironed, every wrinkle fought and flattened. You watch the others do the same. Quiet triumphs, quiet relief. Clara folds her last tablecloth and stretches her shoulders. Bess wipes her hands on her apron and sighs like she's exhaling the whole day. No one mentions the handkerchief again, but everyone remembers it. The light fades into that dusky grey that means it's time. There's no bell, but your body knows the hour. The ache in your spine sharpens. Your arms tremble a little when you fold. Someone at the far end of the yard lets out a long breath. Not quite a sigh, just a release. The work isn't done, not really, but it's slowed enough to resemble an ending. You start folding in earnest now, shirts into neat squares, shifts lengthwise then halved, aprons rolled tight to keep their ties from wrinkling. Every stack has its place. Every place has a number. Miss Lark doesn't look kindly on disorder, even at the end. You sweep your side of the hearth, not because it needs it, coal ash still drifts in from the boiler, but because you've learned that ending the day with a clean patch buys you a kind of peace. The broom is old and the bristles bent. You push it across the flagstones anyway, watching the dark streaks disappear into the gutter. A few loose buttons are swept up, along with a scrap of twine, a piece of soap crust. Tiny ghosts of a long day. You empty the dustpan into the bin behind the starch shed. The lid doesn't close properly, but you press it down with your hip and pretend it does. The last boiling tub is emptied with care. Cook works the tongs slowly, pulling out the final shirt and tossing it onto the rack. The water is a dark, angry grey, steam still rising as it drains away. You don't envy her that job. All day with her face in the fire, lungs full of lye and smoke. But she never complains, never stumbles. She sets the lid on the boiler with a grunt and pats the rim like an old friend. You wonder, not for the first time, if she dreams of anything but water. If her world ever smells of anything but charred soap and sweat. You take your apron off carefully, trying not to smear the last clean patch. The fabric is stiff with soap and starch, and the waistband is damp where it clung to your back. You dunk it in a spare basin near the pump, working the worst of the stains out with your fingers. No soap this time, just water and stubbornness. You wring it twice, fold it over the line near the door and step back. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was. And that's the story of the day, isn't it? Not perfection, just survival. The yard quiets, the mangle stands still. The irons have been set aside. The pump no longer wheezes. You hear the faint caw of a crow somewhere beyond the wall, and the low, distant hum of the city shifting into evening. For a moment, you let your shoulders drop, let your hands hang limp, let your breath come deeper. The quiet isn't peace, not really, but it's close enough. You glance around. Nora is wiping down her bench with vinegar. Clara is hanging her gloves to dry. Bess is sitting on the step, rubbing her ankle. No one speaks. They don't have to. You look down at your hands. The skin is wrinkled and red. Small cuts blooming pale around your knuckles. Your fingernails are rimmed with soap. You flex your fingers. They ache in every joint. But they worked. They endured. You wonder how many days like this it will take before they stop shaking. Before they learn the rhythm without you thinking. Maybe never. Maybe always. You don't know. You just know tomorrow will look a lot like today. And the day after that. And the day after that. Crows circle overhead as you gather your things. You check your apron one last time, making sure it won't drip in your satchel. The girls begin filing out one by one, some heading straight to the main road, others ducking through alleys to disappear into the city's fold. You linger at the gate a moment, hand resting on the rusted latch. The yard behind you glows faintly with the last embers of boiler light, steam curling in the dusk like a secret. You nod to it just once. A strange farewell, and then you step out into the evening. The walk home is quiet. Your boots squelch slightly with every step, the leather still damp from the puddles and the sprint to save the laundry earlier. The streets are winding down, market stalls half covered, the fishmonger's table scrubbed and slick, the scent of brine still clinging to the cobbles. A cat darts across your path, tail flicking in annoyance. The sky above is lavender now, streaked with soot-coloured clouds and the last blush of day. You pass a boy rolling a barrel uphill, his arms shaking from the effort. You pass a butcher hosing down his slabs, bits of fat still clinging to the drain. No one looks up. Everyone is too tired, too used to the rhythm. You blend into the street like you were always part of it. You pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders, though it's less about warmth now, and more about the feel of something familiar. The ache in your arms is deeper than soreness. It's baked in now, part of your blood. Your fingers twitch unconsciously, still mimicking the motions of folding, scrubbing, gripping the iron's handle. At a corner, you pause to let a carriage roll past, the wheels kicking up grit. A fine lady peers out from behind a lace curtain, her gaze drifting past you without seeing you at all. You wonder if she's the one whose petticoat you boiled this morning, the one whose corset ribbon you pressed with shaking hands. As you near your street, the buildings close in tighter, casting longer shadows. Candlelight glows behind thin curtains. A dog barks twice and is silenced with a clatter. Someone's burning something that smells like cabbage and coal. You feel your stomach lurch, not from hunger, but the memory of that midday lump of bread now sitting like stone. A gutter overflows near your step, and you hop it without thought, the same way you've done every day for the past month. One foot in front of the other, one ache replaced by another. You don't know if you like this part of the day. It's quiet, but it's not restful, just blank. You reach the front door, a warped thing with flaking paint and a squeaky hinge. You press your shoulder into it and step inside. The stairwell is dark, the lantern long out. You climb carefully, your hand grazing the wall for balance. Every stair feels steeper. You hear the muffled snores of someone already asleep. A cough from the next floor. You reach your attic room and push the door open with your foot. The room smells faintly of your own sweat, of old soap, of dust. A mattress slumps in the corner. A basin waits by the wall. You consider washing your hands, but your body protests the idea. You drop your satchel gently and sit on the edge of the mattress. It sighs under your weight, or maybe that's just you. Your boots come off slowly one at a time. The heel on the left one is worse than this morning. You'll need to stuff it with rag until payday. Your fingers fumble with the laces. Your apron hangs limp across a hook. You let your hair down and feel it cling to your neck, still damp. The weight of your own scalp is too much. You lie back. You don't even pull the blanket up. Just stare at the ceiling and blink slowly. Sleep doesn't come right away. It never does. The muscles in your back twitch. Your knees throb. Your wrists ache. But the exhaustion settles over you like fog, heavy and inevitable. You don't remember closing your eyes. You don't dream. You don't even breathe deeply. You just fade. No thoughts, no images, just black. And the knowledge that in a few short hours you'll open your eyes to grey light, cold floor and the sting of soap in your cracks, Another day, another basin, another shirt that doesn't care how tired you are. You didn't last the week. Most don't. They come with hands too soft, shoes too tight, eyes too wide. They make it through one day, maybe two, and then something gives. A wrist pulled on the mangle, fingers scalded at the boiler. The steam alone will do it for some. Or the silence. That grinding, clinging silence of women working around you and never saying your name. If you're lucky, you leave on your own feet. If you're not, someone else carries your bucket back to the dormitory while the rest finish your load. Either way, you're gone, and the laundry yard doesn't remember. The records won't show you. The tally book will have a gap for the days you worked. A small space between initials. No note, no comment. Just a skipped line where someone else picks up where you left off. There's always another girl, another pair of hands, another set of cracked knuckles willing to kneel by the trough and take up the brush. You weren't the first, you weren't the last, and if they remember you at all, it'll be by the shirt you scorched or the hem you stitched too tight. Maybe Bess will mutter something about the girl who asked too many questions. Maybe not. The cloth at least will remember. It always does. Threads hold things, heat, motion, pressure, maybe even pain. The shirt you pressed until your arms gave out will sit on some gentleman's back crisp and clean, and no one will know how many times it was soaked and wrung and steamed just to get that edge. The nightgown you folded with trembling hands will drape across a chair in a room lit by oil lamps and warmed by fire, far from the wet stone yard where you bled into its seams. Your name won't be there, but your work will be folded, silent, enduring. What does clean mean anyway? In 1874, it meant boiling lye and sour starch. It meant fingers raw from soda ash. It meant scraping blood from hems you weren't allowed to ask about. It meant dragging stiff cloth through rollers so heavy they left bruises on your thighs. It meant knowing how to tell the difference between soot and ink, wine and blood, sweat and something you could only guess. It meant never asking where the stain came from, only how to make it disappear. Clean was never about purity. It was about control, and it always came at someone's cost. You learn over time that survival isn't strength. It's repetition. It's doing the thing again even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. It's waking up when your body begs you not to. It's holding your tongue when the starch burns your cuts. It's folding someone else's linens with care, knowing they'll never thank you. It's watching your own hands change shape, harden, crack, callous, and pretending you don't notice. The girls who last are the ones who stop flinching, who stop dreaming, who stop counting the bruises. You didn't last, but some do. Tonight when you slip into your own sheets, clean, soft, warm, maybe you'll think about what that took. Not in money, not in machines, in muscle, in silence, in the quiet grace of someone who worked so hard their name disappeared. Maybe it was a girl like you, or maybe nothing like you at all. But she scrubbed the collar that doesn't itch. She pressed the hem that falls just right. She carried the basin that held your comfort, and when she fell asleep, she didn't dream of anything but stillness. Maybe you'd rather not think about her. That's fair, most people don't. Clean things are meant to be invisible, to feel untouched, to pretend they came that way, but just for a moment. If you can, try. Try to remember the yard, the smoke, the hiss, the sting of soap in every crack. Try to picture a girl in a damp apron, arms shaking, face blank, scrubbing a stain she didn't cause. Try to see her as someone who mattered, because she did, even if the tally sheet forgot her. And if you ever find yourself complaining about the laundry again, about the folding, the weight, the smell, remember this. You didn't have to fetch the water, you didn't have to fire the stove, you didn't have to carry the cloth on your back in the rain. Someone else did, and they didn't do it for praise. They did it because they had no choice, and because the cloth demanded it, and because the world, then as now, runs on the work no one sees. So rest easy tonight. Let your mattress cradle you. Let the linen whisper against your skin. And when you close your eyes, let a quiet thank you pass your lips. Not to anyone in particular, just to the past, to the girls who came before, to the hands that laboured and bled and cracked open so yours wouldn't have to. You didn't last a day in the laundry yard, but someone did, and that's why your bed is clean. There's a name carved in one of the laundry yard beams. It's faint now, rubbed smooth by years of steam and smoke, but if you look close you'll see it. Just 3 initials, not a full name. Probably carved with a pin or the corner of a laundry hook. Maybe it belonged to a girl who made it through her first winter, or someone who wanted proof she'd been there, even if no one remembered her face. Names don't last in places like that, not unless you scratch them into wood or stone or someone's memory. And memory, as you know, fades faster than lye in warm water. Every basin tells a story, not with words but with stains. A scorch on a collar, a rip mended with mismatched thread, a shirt too yellow to pass as white again, no matter how long you boil it. The older women in the yard can read those marks the way some read tea leaves. They know who wore what and how long, and what kind of man he was by the smell of the sweat in the cloth. You didn't learn that yet. You didn't last long enough. But you saw enough to understand the silence, the weight of things unsaid, the quiet dignity in folding something clean and setting it aside, knowing that's the last you'll see of it. Most girls don't write about this work. They don't keep journals, they don't send letters home, not because they're not thinking, but because by the end of the day, their hands won't hold a pen, and what would they write anyway? Boiled 20 shirts, burned 3 fingers, got blamed for a missing sock. It doesn't make for poetry, it doesn't rise to the level of important history. But maybe it should. Maybe this is the history that matters most. The kind no one asked for, but someone had to live. The kind written in steam instead of ink. Gone before it hits the air. Your own hands, if you'd stayed, would have changed. The soft skin would have split and thickened. Your wrists would have learned to bear the iron's weight without trembling. Your eyes would have adapted to steam and shadow, able to spot a stain in half-light. But something else would have changed too. Your heart, maybe. Your voice. That part of you that hoped someone might notice. Because no one notices. Not unless it goes wrong. And by the time they do, it's too late. You're already blamed. Or worse, replaced. There's always someone hungrier behind you. Always someone with less to lose. But in the quiet moments, those rare slivers between boiling and folding, between tally sheets and broken pegs, there is something else. A kind of sacredness. It's not peace exactly, but a closeness to the raw, real shape of the world. No illusions, no decoration, just sweat and cloth and the dull rhythm of endurance. It's a hard place to live in, but it's honest. And maybe that's why the girls who survive the yard often survive everything else too. They've already seen what the world demands, and they've already decided they'll meet it with both hands, cracked and bleeding if necessary. If you listen closely, you can still hear it. The slap of wet linen against stone. The creak of the wringer handle. The soft thud of an iron set down too hard. They echo faintly in places that no longer see them. In towns that paved over their yards, turned them into gardens or garages or bins. But under the surface it's there. That memory, that pattern. A rhythm that built 1,000 clean homes and went unthanked. You walk on it every day and don't even know it. But the stones remember. They always do. So the next time you pull on a crisp shirt or slide between pressed sheets or dry your face on a towel that smells of lavender, pause, just for a second. Picture a stone yard damp and steaming. Picture a girl no older than your niece, her arms deep in soap, her boots slick with starch water. Picture her folding that same cloth, setting it on a stack, eyes red from the heat. She didn't know your name, you'll never know hers, but your paths crossed anyway, through fabric, through labour, through the old, invisible work that keeps the world stitched together. And if you're tempted to say it doesn't matter, that it's all in the past, that we've moved on, think again. Laundry is still being done, still by hands that ache, still in rooms with no fans, still in silence, still by people who are paid too little to be remembered and too much to be replaced. The machines are louder now, but the story hasn't changed much, it's just hidden behind buttons and steam and the illusion of effortlessness. But it's there. always there. Work that makes your comfort. Comfort that erases the work. Maybe that's the story in the end. Not the pain, not the sweat, but the erasure. The way we forget, the way we choose to forget, and the gentle, persistent act of remembering anyway. Of carving initials into wood. Of telling the story even if no one asks. Even if no one listens. Even if it's just for you, in a quiet room, with your eyes closed and a voice whispering from the past. You didn't last a day, but now you know what the day held, and maybe that's enough. So take one last breath tonight. Let it fill your chest. Let your sheets rustle as you settle in. The past isn't asking for anything but that you lie still, that you rest gently, that you let the story be told. And if you wake tomorrow with even a little more softness toward the world, a little more care in your hands, then the work wasn't wasted. Then someone like you might last a little longer next time. Maybe even remember, maybe even tell someone else. Sleep well. You've travelled far and need to boil anything tonight. Let the cloth be, let the stain stay gone. Let the steam rise and drift away. The tally book is closed, the yard is quiet, and the fire is out.